Governor,
That's questions.
There were those that thought maybe you needed a knockout here tonight, to use the boxing analogy. How do you think you did?
I think I did okay.
Was he cut, bleeding? If you talk in boxing terms.
I'll let others, make those judgments. But I think I did okay. I think he did okay.
Governor, how do you think your record was portrayed tonight by the other side?
Well, people can do the fact checking. So I'll leave that up to objective observers to reach that judgment.
Governor, you both seem to be going over the themes that we've been hearing from your campaigns throughout. Was there anything that you were hoping you would be questioned about, hoping that you could get across that really never came up this evening?
The questions obviously were related to the themes of the two campaigns, and I think that has to be expected because I think those are the things that are most important to Ohio and to this campaign. So I don't know that there was any particular question that I expected or would like to have received. I think the issues are fairly clear. I think there are basic differences between the congressman and myself. As I've said, I think he has problems with Ohio, and I think some of the judgments that he makes about Ohio are based on old data or dated information. I think that we've done many of the things that he says he wants to do if he were to become governor.
You are trailing in a lot of the polls, the poll numbers that are coming out, significantly in some of the polls. Do you think anything happened tonight that can turn that around?
I don't know, but I think we'll find out probably fairly soon because I know there will be additional polling. But I think the polls were starting to close before tonight, and I have some data to support that.
Can you share that
not that
data?
I'm going to share it with you.
What was Kasich's weakest moment tonight?
I have to think about that. I think he didn't have an answer to the reference I made regarding his employment at Ohio State. It seemed to me that was something that he really didn't have an answer for. And if people were listening and heard what I said, $50,000 a year, 4 hours work a week, $1,000 an hour, that's what he thinks he's worth, and he wants to pay his appointees to this not-for-profit new Jobs Ohio idea of his. That's problematic. I think it's sort of smacks of elitism, because I believe it's been reported. I haven't heard him say it, but it's been reported in the paper that he says that the universities have got to require more work out of their teachers, and for him to say that while knowing that for a period of years he got, roughly $1,000 an hour for walking into a class, and at least one of the students that was in one of those classes told me that he came in talking about his book. I think that indicates a double standard, that that he appears to feel like there are rules that apply to him that are different than the rules that he would apply to everyone else.
Governor, handshake right in the middle of the debate, not your standard practice. What was going through your head there, and what did you want to get across by doing that?
Well, it was just, it was a moment when, the two of us were saying complimentary things about each other. It just seemed that the most appropriate response or rebuttal was just to demonstrate that We may have differences of opinion, but there's, it's not a personal animus or a personal dislike. It's just, I said that I've always liked John. I remember when I was in Congress, and he lived, I believe he lived out in the Old Town area. I drove him home one night after a late session at the Capitol building, and we set out in the car for a period of time after we got to his place, talking about prisons and the prison system. And so that's the kind of relationship that we had when I was in Congress. It wasn't close. I mean, we weren't guys that hung out together and went out to eat together and socialized together. But it was always friendly and cordial, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, it remains that way.
Governor, he said that you would run a campaign of distraction and bring up things about his career at Lehman Brothers and Ohio State just to distract from your own record. Is that just his effort to get the subject away from what he's been like?
Well, Bill, I think my record is legitimate discussion point, and I think his record is as well. I mean, when you're in public office, you develop records, and so I think it's fair for him to talk about my record. I hope he does it, in a fair way, and I talk about his record, and I only try to talk about things in his record that I think are a part of the real record.
You said that you thought he veered away from what his mother and father taught him. Do you really think that?
Well, listen, that was a moment when we were basically complimenting each other. That was not said in any mean-spirited kind of way. I think I talk about things that are part of a documented record. And
you each presented very different numbers about what small business is doing in Ohio, also about how successful the education system is right now.
Yes.
When the numbers are so starkly different, how do voters wade their way through that?
Well, I would ask the voters to look at those who are nonpartisan in their approach and who have no particular reason to benefit or be biased for or against Ohio. For example, the Education Commission of the States gave us their #1 award this year for having the boldest, most courageous, innovative, and nonpartisan approach to school reform. The governor that was the chair of that organization at the time was Mr. Pawlenty, a Republican governor from Minnesota. So I'm proud of the fact that we received that award. I had nothing to do with it. It was an objective, external group that made that judgment. Education Week is a highly respected publication that has a quality education quality index they use. And according to Education Week, looking at our system of public education now, they say we have the 5th best in the nation and the best in the Midwestern part of our country. Now, that's not me saying that. These are the external validators. So I would just suggest that people should look to the external validators rather than to those who may have a political agenda.
Governor, we didn't hear a lot of specifics tonight about the budget situation or some of the thornier issues in the campaign. As you pointed out, early voting, absentee voting starts 2 weeks from today. Do you think voters are going to get any of those details before they cast ballots in this race?
I think voters, if they listen to John Kasich and they listen to me, have a pretty good idea of the approach that the two of us would take. There may not be, specifics laid out, but I think they know that I value education and that I value maintaining a social safety net for our people, and they can make their judgment regarding what his priorities would be. But I don't think people are going to be voting, without having a fairly clear idea of the differences between the two of us.
Governor, why don't you clearly say right now that it will take a mix of tax increases and spending cuts?
Why don't I say that? Because I believe, as I have said, that a tax increase at a point of a struggling recovery, I continue to hope and pray that we don't go into a double-dip recession. But I do believe that that's possible. That's why my goal is to not raise taxes and to secure sufficient resources from our federal government to enable us to get through this very difficult period of time moving into an economic recovery. That's my approach. I've said it multiple times. And I know that there are those who are skeptical about getting a second stimulus from the federal government. I believe it is hugely possible. And once this election is over, because every state in America, save maybe 2 or 3, are facing circumstances like Ohio's, or even in some cases much more severe than Ohio's, that there will be a recognition that the economy remains fragile, that we've got to avoid a double-dip recession, and that we will continue to get some additional federal help as we move forward. I think that will happen.
Governor, you've talked at length tonight about your record.
Campaign ad. I try to communicate with the people of Ohio on a continuous basis through local media, through people like you, whose job it is to ask people like me questions. And I've tried to do that not only since I've been governor, but I've tried to do that since I've been in public life. I have called, when I was in Congress, I would call reporters back sometimes at midnight or later if they had asked to talk with me and I hadn't got to them. And so, just let me say to you that 30-second TV ads is probably not the most effective way to communicate public policy to the people of a state. And I try to do it in multiple ways.
Last question.
Governor, back on the OSU issue, does your outrage on the hiring for Kasich carry over to other people with political connections who have gotten hired by OSU, someone like Joyce Beatty, for example? And should the state step forward and do something about that?
Well, I don't know of anyone who has gotten $50,000 for 4 hours work a month, according to his own report. I mean, some of the other folks that you may want to mention have jobs and responsibilities, and my understanding is they work full-time. But not only did Mr. Kasich get a $50,000 contract, but his former chief of staff, I understand, got a $20,000 contract, according to news reports, to be his campus aide. And why someone would need a campus aide when they report that they work 4 hours a month, is beyond me. I just find that, I mean, I don't want to make, I just find that troubling, that anyone would accept that and assume that it's okay. I just can't, it's just almost, I don't know what to say. It is so puzzling to me that a person who is making a lot of money on Wall Street and for Fox News, writing books and giving lectures, would think that it was reasonable to accept $50,000 for 4 hours work a month. That's really troubling.